Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 105th video on my video journal series. Today's date is Sunday, the 24th of May, 2026. How's everyone been? I've been pretty good, thank you. And something I guess I want to discuss with you today is free attractions, more specifically, free things to do around Sydney. Because as you may know, the cost of living crisis has hit quite hard, and obviously, a lot of people don't really have the money to spend going out, grabbing something to eat, going to theme parks or ticketed events or anything like that. So I guess I'll be like discussing, I guess free things to do in Sydney or just ideas really, because whenever I go out to the city or anything like that, or one of the inner suburbs or anywhere in Sydney really, can be as far as the Blue Mountains. Um, I always like to, just try and I guess stretch my dollar. Try and do as much free things as possible. Which is why I like taking public transport, because for me that's like an experience, and I know on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with my concession card, get four. I get a $4 cap on Opal, which means I can travel anywhere in Sydney, um, for a total of $4 a day on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. On regular days, I'm pretty sure it's around, I think, $10. I think, yeah, it's around there. So yeah, I guess public transport, first option. It's a very good way to, I guess, maximize your dollar, especially if you live in Queensland or Victoria, because Queensland currently have 50-cent fares, which mean you can go anywhere in the state, one way for 50 cents. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you're taking a bus ride that is 1 kilometer or a train ride that's 20 kilometers. You just pay 50 cents one way, which I think is a very good policy. And then obviously, Victoria right now have free public transport. I know, free public transport across the entire state. That is like insane. Like even extends to V line services. And that's resulted in a lot of like overcrowding. But yeah, I guess that's like an experience in of itself, and it gets to your destination obviously for much less cost. Practically free cost. You can go anywhere in Victoria for free right now, basically. And I heard in like Tasmania also to like discount bus fares and all that. So yeah, I guess like public transport's one. If you just want to like, I don't know, maybe go to the Blue Mountains or Newcastle, areas served by electric trains, and that's integrated within the Opal network. If you do like a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday sort of day trip thing, yeah, that'll be a good idea. You spend a few hours on a train, and you get to stretch your legs, look at the scenery outside. So yeah, I guess catching public transport or train will be like, I guess, quote unquote, the first option. And also, as a recording this, Vivid has just started. For those who don't know, Vivid is an annual light show here in Sydney, where every night for like a couple of weeks, there's like light shows, events, and all of that in the Sydney CBD and Darling Harbour area. There's like stalls and all of that. And I remember a few years ago they did like a drone show in Sydney Harbour, which was like really nice. Um, and yeah, they just like it's predominantly like a night show sort of thing. They light up, the Harbour Bridge and Opera House, and it's like I'll explain it as like an outdoor light festival, if you catch my drift. But yeah, I think there's like a few free activities to do for Vivid this year. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go to Vivid this year, but whenever I walk by the city, I usually like to like you know browse what's going on really. So yeah, I guess free activities within Vivid. Obviously you can look at, I guess, the city skyline or the iconic landmarks lit up, which will be a nice, I guess, outing for the family. It's not like New Year's Eve fireworks where it's just a one night sort of thing and it's this grand spectacle and everyone leaves and it gets insanely crowded. Vivid's more like spread out. So yeah, I guess that's another thing you can do for free. I guess the free activities involved during Vivid, but you also got to pay for like transport. You got to pay for food, amenities, and all that. So that can quickly rack up the cost. But yeah, as for like other free activities, as someone who I guess relies on free activities, I guess pastime. Another thing I like to do is just take like strolls in parks and all that, because obviously all the public parks here in Sydney, vast majority of them. I don't know if there's any paid parks, hopefully there's not, but yeah, I guess like we have a lot of free public parks here in Sydney. I know in Japan, some of the like parks, not parks, but like more like imperial palaces and whatever. They have like parks on the site, and sometimes they charge like an entry fee. I know the Tokyo Imperial Palace. If you want to go to like the main garden, I think there is an entry fee. But when I went, I think there weren't like I think it was like a free day when I went to Japan, like November 2024. So yeah, I always found that as a little bit weird, even if it's like on a quote unquote historical site or whatever that you charge money to go into a park, but that's besides the point. Sydney, we have a few good green spaces, and you can always go to like Hyde Park, Tumbalong Park and Darling Harbour. I like to walk through all those like city parks, and there's even the Royal National Park. And I think we're like blessed to have like a lot of like I guess greenery, and obviously you can walk through these parks like obviously for free. I don't think there's like any fees attached or anything. Not for Royal National Park, I don't think so. And yeah, like obviously just walking through parks, maybe bring a book along, do some reading and all that. Um, and I guess it's like a small thing, but like I do like public parks, especially like big parks in the middle of a city. It just provides with like a small break from the hustle and bustle of the city. I like to go to like London someday because they got like a lot of big parks, and some of the parks are like so huge, and then like in like central London that you can go into like in the middle of the park and you'll see like no buildings around. It's just like all trees, and it just looks like you know like looks like the English countryside almost. But if you just walk down this path, you'll just see all the buildings and skyscrapers of London. It's really insane. Here in Sydney, Hyde Park, it is quite big, where you can still see all the skyscrapers and all that. Maybe like botanical gardens, for instance. I think that's our version of it. Botanical gardens. Some sections of the botanical gardens, you can just like look out into Sydney Harbour and see all like the houses and all that. It really gets you like immersed. So yeah, that's I guess another free activity to do at public parks. Yeah, another free activity I like to do because yet again I guess trying to like save up money and really maximize my dollar is I guess like window shopping's another thing where you go into like shops and all that. Like I like to go to you know the major like Westfield stores in the city and all that. And I don't necessarily like buy things, but I like to like check out what's going on. Sometimes I go into like JB Hi-Fi, for instance, and I like to play on their like the Nintendo Switch demo units for a bit. I mean, I'm really, I guess, pushing it here, but yeah, I guess like JB. Another reason why I like going there is because they got like this free magazine called Stacked. Um, it's a monthly magazine. It's basically like sort of like a you know, it's like a gaming and entertainment magazine on one side, and then the other side just practically all ads for like refrigerators and all that. But yeah, it's actually a pretty like good quality magazine, even if it's like just a piece of advertising material for JB Hi-Fi. But I must admit they're doing pretty well. And obviously it's like a free magazine available at all JB stores, and yeah, that's like a thing. I only think that JB Hi-Fi, like I know like other places like Harvey Norman and Officeworks and all that, they have like their own store magazine, and you can take one. Audi as well, Coles, all the supermarkets. But JB Hi-Fi, they're like free store magazines. They're really like impressive quality. They're like the stuff that you get like a department stores or whatever, in like the checkout lane. It's actually like that pretty. It's actually that like good. They contain like reviews and all that for like video games and products, and I guess more like just outlining what it is when it's available in store, because it's yet again a piece of, I guess, um, it's like an advertisement, but it's done in a way that I guess has a more quote unquote authentic vibe. So yeah, I always like getting the newest issue of Stacked, because it just reminds me of when I used to read those like kids gaming magazines when I was younger. Even if it's just like a piece of um, advertising, I don't really mind it, because I always like seeing what's new on store shelves. Um, and I always like paying on the like Nintendo Switch demo kiosks, and I always like just looking at what they have. When I was in Japan, also I remember just going to like a few of the electronics stores and just like looking around, not even buying them, but just like looking around at like all the stuff they had, stuff that I didn't even know they even sold in electronics stores in Japan. Um, and I guess like another free activity to do, apart from like I guess window shopping and all that, is I guess like maybe like free community events. I know that sometimes city councils and all that, they host like free events. They might host like a market day sort of thing. They might host like a public demonstration or show or whatever. And I always like going to them. Even if I'm not from like the area, if I just pass by, I see like a street performer or a festival going on, I always like to like engage. Um, because I just like that sort of thing. And I remember when I went to Melbourne uh months ago, it was in the, I think it was the Chinese Lunar New Year celebrations, and I remember they hosted like you know a celebration. I got video of this. I didn't upload it to my main channel, but I got video of this where they have all these like performers in Chinatown in Melbourne, um, you know, putting on a show for like hundreds and hundreds of people. It was insanely packed, but it was very lovely. Um, and yeah, like obviously that's like a big event, like for Chinese Lunar New Year, but um, it's still a welcome thing, and even though they're not like I guess common, they're only like once a year sort of thing. I appreciate it, and I guess like um, closer to like the major holidays that you get to, the more I guess things there are to do, or the more free activities, because usually they'll you know host some more public demonstrations and shows and performances and all that. It's always like going to them. It's a small little thing, but like it provides entertainment and something for me to, I guess, be occupied with. And it's just like a nice thing. It's just nice seeing that community vibe and that community, I guess, spirit. And I guess another, apart from those obvious ones, I guess another, at least like budget saving or cost cutting activity will most likely be, I'll have to say movie theaters. Like it really depends what movie you go and watch, but um, if you find like a movie theater that's like screening, you know, old movies for cheap, or hosting like a massive marathon, like a Star Wars or Lord of the Rings marathon, and the price of that ticket is around the same price as a normal ticket, I'll consider that uh, quote unquote cost cutting, because you can pay $20 to see a 2 hour movie, but you can pay maybe around 25 or $30 for like a 12-hour movie marathon. Now, I have never done a movie marathon in my life, let alone at a cinema, but if the ticket price is around the same as a normal ticket price, I'll 100% do it, because I guess it provides me with something for the day. I mean, pretty much, 12 hours, like uh, the full, I guess, day, quote unquote, the day with all like the time of day with all the sunshine, and like you go in the morning and then you come out at like nighttime sort of thing. I'm pretty sure my mum might have like done a movie marathon once in their life at like a cinema. I'm not sure, but yeah, I guess like quote unquote movie marathons or just like movie theaters and all that. They can provide like a good source of entertainment for relatively low cost. Um, and sometimes they do like like not free movie screenings, but sometimes they like film festivals and all that. Like I don't know if there are any free film festivals here in Sydney or like something along the lines of that. I'm not sure. I'm not really into that, I guess, sort of thing. I haven't really looked into it, but I guess if it's like a free film festival in your area, you can always attend. And if they're like doing a free public showing of a movie, then why not? Um, you know, and I guess also like going to the beach. Obviously, getting to the beach costs money, but once you're on the beach, you can surf for free. Um, you know, I guess if it's a hot day, obviously you're not going to do it during winter. But during winter, I guess you can always like, you know, maybe plan out like a jog or something like that. Um, just to get, I guess, your blood pumping. Just generate some heat throughout your body. At least those are the things I like to do. Maybe not surfing. I don't really surf that much. I don't think I've surfed. God, ever since I was young, most probably. But yeah, I guess I'd like to hear your opinions of what to do, like free activities, or at least like activities with relatively low cost or the most like bang for your buck sort of thing. Um, I feel like with me, it will likely be travel. Obviously, I like traveling. So often enough, I travel by public transport, low cost, and I like catching trains, buses, ferries, light rail, metro, and all that. So yeah, it provides me with, I guess, like two things. Like getting to my destination and also an experience, and obviously like sometimes I host like heritage tours and all that, but they cost money. But you can always like I guess go to like Central Station whenever they're doing like a heritage tour. You can just like take photos of the steam train or old electric train that's out. It's I guess better than nothing. But as for like free activities, I feel like the amount of free activities in the city, or at least like around the city of Sydney area has like decreased over the years. I know I heard from someone that the Chinese Garden of Friendship was originally free when it opened in like the late 80s. I don't know if that's 100% true or not. But now, it is paid entry. Um, and obviously, like, I know for Vivid, I think it was last year or the year before, they tried like um, introducing a lot more free activities just to combat the whole cost of living crisis thing, which I get argue is like a good step in the like right direction. But then I went to those like free activities and they're like okay, but it's certainly not like I guess worth visiting if you live like very very far away. I mean, they provide like an interesting sort of experience. But I feel like I'd rather have like one very good free activity out of like 10, very small and kind of like you do it once and you don't really like do it again sort of thing. And obviously, oh yeah, I forgot to mention museums. Museums are probably like the best free activity that you could do. My favorite was oh, man, my favorite was the Powerhouse Museum in Ultimo, but that one's closed for renovations. I'm pretty sure that one's going to open like 2027, 2028. But I remember in 2023, I think December of 2023, right a few months before it closed for renovations, I went with a mate to the Ultimo Powerhouse Museum. And obviously, entry there's free as it's owned by the government. But they have like a lot of cool stuff in there. The Catalina locomotive number one, the first um, train in New South Wales, and all of it's for free. You can view it, and it's just like a very like fun experience for me because I see a lot of like stuff I'm interested in. Um, and yeah, like they even got like that when I went there. They had like this massive, um, train. departure board that was used at Central Station. Um, which was a delight to see when I last went there a few years ago. And I can't wait for it to like reopen um, in a few years' time. There's the Powerhouse Museum in Parramatta that's going to open up soon. I don't know when that's going to open. I think it's like this year or next year. Um, so yeah, like obviously Parramatta Powerhouse Museum, and also you got the Australian Museum in the CBD. I've been to that one. That one's just like pretty good as well. Um, and obviously you have to pay money for like ticketed events if they're hosting like a special exhibition, but general entry is for free. And yeah, like obviously museums are like cool because even though they have like the I guess same um, main staple artifacts and all that, it's always good to I guess like go to museums every once in a while and just get to see these things up close, like dinosaur bones and all that. It's always so cool. And yeah, I remember having lots of fun at the Powerhouse Museum in Ultimo. It's very much like an interactive museum. When I went there, they have like a lot of like interactive activities, and they like do tour guides and all that. So yeah, museums is another very good option for a free activity. There's some museums which charge an entry fee, but they're certainly, I guess, not the not the majority. But yet again, it really depends where you're going to. Like I've definitely been to like a few museums where they charge like just like a small entry fee, but even it's only like maybe like $5 or $10 really. But it depends, like because whenever I go to like transport museums, they usually charge like a small entry in Australia and overseas. But you get to ride on like heritage vehicles and all that, which is like insanely cool. So I often like obviously I'm willing to pay, um, you know, $5 if it meant I can travel on a vintage tram, for instance, like what I did in Auckland at the Auckland Transport Museum. I don't think entry was like $5, so it would have been around 10ish. But it was a very fun day out, and yeah. Um, so yeah, museums is another one, and obviously the big museums here in Sydney are located, within I guess the Sydney CBD area or Parramatta. They're located in the areas with like good public transport, so you shouldn't really have a problem there, getting to those destinations. Excuse me, huh? So my nose is a little bit finicky tonight. And I guess yeah, like I'm most probably missing a few more, like like community pools and all that. Um, but I'm just speaking from like personal experience, what I see as like a fun day out just to do for free. Um, yeah, and yet again I like to hear your I guess suggestions on what to do for if you just had like a day out and you just didn't want to spend much money. Because honestly, like whenever I go out, I swear, if I want to go out to the city, just spend a day out, I always find myself spending at least, $30 or, $50, just in terms of transport, food, maybe an activity, if I'm watching a movie or if I'm, you know, going to, I don't know, an arcade, for instance. Those, I guess, costs can really, um, rack up throughout the day. You might only think, $4 on transport. That's pretty self-explanatory. But then you spend maybe like, you know, $15 on food and drink, and then you spend maybe like another 15 to $20 to do an activity, and that's like on the lower scale. So if you spend maybe like 20 on the activity, 15 on food, um, that's already 35 plus $4 on transport. That's already $39 altogether, and then you're left with I guess $11. Well, what's $11 going to give you in today's economy? So yeah, it can quickly rack up, especially for families and all that. But that's why you know, I like to do a lot of free activities. Not every day I go out has to be me explicitly doing something. It's just me walking around, walking for free. Um, or just catching public transport the entire day. Like, I know that sounds very boring, but I like to do lengthy transport trips. Sitting the Manly Ferry. On the fresh waters. That's always a nice experience. Um, and just riding. I ended up like just really like riding random like train and buses and all that. Just like if I see a train that's approaching, I'll just ride it and then go a couple of stops and then ride it back. Sort of thing. Especially if it's like an old train, for instance. I remember doing that with the K sets. Whenever I spotted one, I just go around the entire city circle. But now they're scrapping the K sets, and I believe now there's only maybe like a few of them in service still. But yeah, I remember like doing it. I've been doing it for a while. Last time I did it was like maybe 1 or 2 months ago. But yeah, when I heard that they were scrapping them, I tried to like at least write it one more time this year. But yeah, obviously it depends where you live, the amount of free activities that you can do. Um, or even like I guess quote unquote just low cost activities. You know what I mean? Sorry, just my jeans are a little bit dusty at the bottom. Yeah, just low or free cost activities. Because like low cost or free activities. So no, that's the way you should put it. Low cost or free activities. Which I think they should, increase the amount of, especially city governments and all that, because, not everything has to be behind a paywall, for instance. And I think, Sydney in general does a pretty good job, regardless of free activities. When I went to Japan and all that, sure, there's a lot of activities to do, but even those required like a small little entry fee, which, I don't mind because they're high quality, like all the museums and parks, even, just like, going out somewhere, um, everything, at least for me, was relatively affordable. But, I feel like um, obviously, in a major city like Tokyo, it's not very much green space, and the green space that there is, at least in like large chunks, are usually on imperial palaces or on historic sites and all that. And usually, those require an entry fee. But I feel like for stuff like parks, museums, and stuff of like major historical importance, cultural or historical importance, that they should be for free. They should be open to everyone. And obviously it's easy to get, I guess, sucked in, to the nearby shops and restaurants and fast food chains and all that, retail stores, and spending money. But I feel like we need like obviously less commercialization around the CBD area. There needs to be some areas where, especially near parks and open spaces, where there's just no ads or anything like that. And just really, I guess, enjoy a free atmosphere. Playgrounds is another thing. Like Darling Harbour. There's like you know, there's obviously shops and all that, but there's like a family um playground and all that. Obviously, there's a lot of services and amenities. Um, you know, but I feel like yeah, that'll be another thing. Maybe like I guess obviously put services and amenities near these three things, but you know, obviously I wouldn't say to I guess put a lot of advertising around the area because um yeah, I guess part of like quote unquote free activities to do is get you do it for free. It's basically a service provided by a specific organization or the government. And it's kind of like a free trial, for instance. It's basically like a free trial where you know you sign up, and then if you don't hit the cancel button, it'll charge you anyway, sort of thing. Like you're on the verge of actually paying for a subscription. With free activities and all that, and free events, they should just be of significant historical. they should embody that historical and cultural importance of that event. They shouldn't really, I guess, quote unquote, be commercialized or anything like that. They should be, a service to the community. That's how I can figure, like an act of gratitude towards the community. Like, here you are, here's a park, sort of thing. Rather than, here's a park and we're just gonna put like, a bunch of billboards and banners around it, or we're gonna like um, put like a very, I don't know, like what's the thing? Put like you know what's like, you know I don't know. I was thinking of like, you know like there's a catch sort of thing. But I guess with public parks, it would just be, like that one like very expensive hot dog stand, which isn't operated by the government or whatever. It's just like some guy or gal or whoever, um, just selling very expensive hot dogs, or even just like the ice cream truck. And yet again, that's not really government. I guess it would be like, yeah, I honestly don't know with public parks what the catch is. You just go in and enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the air, enjoy all the trees, and all that. But yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say here is, like obviously there needs to be more free activities because cities should be thriving cities. Not everyone has access to money, including children and all that. So yeah, like free things, free activities, yeah, places where payment isn't required for entry, such as parks, recreational spaces, um, you know, or even just stuff that's like low cost. Yet again, like public transport and all that, or you know, obviously another free cost being beach, um, wildlife reserves, um, just anything I guess to do with nature, museums. That's what I think government should be investing in. Yet again, I don't believe, I guess, quote unquote, in paywalls. Um, where you have to pay money in order to, I guess, enjoy yourself for the day. I mean, obviously, if you want a quote unquote quality experience, you do have to pay for it. But I think there should also be quality experiences within free activities offered by the state, local, federal government or whatever, or just by like some organization. I know like there's like a lot of multicultural festivals around Sydney, like the Greek festival and all that, and it's always free to attend. Um, I don't know if there's like any other um, multicultural festivals like that, or like just festivals like focus on celebrating a particular nationality sort of thing. I only know of the Greek festival, which is in Elwood, I think, but I think there was a hosted one in like La Cruz and Darling Harbour as well. Excuse me, sorry, my nose is a little bit. Yeah, I guess like maybe it's time to wrap things up. So yeah, obviously I think the Greek festival they hold it like every year, but always um look forward to that sort of thing. Maybe there's other ones for different nationalities. Who knows? But yeah, I guess to wrap things up, I believe there should be more free activities, and I'll say take advantage of those free activities. Like I think we take for granted the amount of, I guess, things that are provided to us that we don't really utilize. Stuff like libraries, for instance. You might say to yourself, "Who goes to the library?" Well, I very much like libraries. They're very, quiet place. Good place to study, and you get access to all these like materials and resources, like books and computers. And that's another free activity, quote unquote, like reading books or going on the library computer, or just like, which may sound a little bit lame, but I guess you really got to use um, those resources to your advantage. I'll recommend check out your local town or city library. Sometimes I like going to the state library just because it's like one of the most quietest areas in the city. And you can get like a lot of, I guess, work done when things are that quiet. I like just going deep into the library and just looking at all the books that they have, but also just like absorbing the atmosphere. And yet again, state library is another free thing. Technically, watching Parliament's also free, but a lot of people just fall asleep. But I have like watched Parliament from like the galleries before. Um, yeah, I guess that's another thing to do if like Parliament's sitting. Just participate. But mind you, it can be very boring. Just reading just shut it up, my state this sort of thing. I wouldn't blame you if you fell asleep. I'm not sure if you're allowed to fall asleep. um, yeah. So like I said, I'll just say use, I guess, the facilities around you to your advantage. Whatever, I guess, library that's in your area or museum or something that's like funded by the state or a specific organization that's like free for everyone to use. I would say take advantage of it. If you're like, if you have a family or whatever, obviously public parks, the beach is always like a good example. But also maybe just take like a day trip via public transport to the next town over, or just use it to travel long distance. Train. I always like long train trips. Some people can't handle it, but I'll tell you, you get a lot more leg room than driving. At least you can move around the carriage, unlike airplanes or whatever. You can move around. You can go to the buffet car if the train has one. You can sit down, talk to other passengers. It's really like a lively atmosphere, and yeah, like I think like some of the best things to do in the city are for free. And I think Sydney, like despite all my criticisms, I think we are fortunate to have in the, I guess, quote unquote greater Sydney area, a lot of like resources that we can use to our disposal, and a lot of things to do for free, even if it means that we obviously still have to pay for food and all that. But yeah, I guess those are some of the things I've come up with to, I guess, combat the whole cost of living crisis. And obviously, I very much enjoy free activities, low cost activities, really just stretching my dollar throughout the day because it can go by very fast. Another way I guess I quote unquote reduce it is also by just like eating at home. I don't really like getting takeout food anymore. So I always just try to, like, I guess, have a big meal before I go out, and then I just carry around my water bottle. But yeah, I guess it really differs for everyone. And my wise little, I guess, quote for the day is you know where's my wise little quote? Um, yet again, these quotes aren't original or anything, but I'm just, I guess, coming up with ones that I've heard throughout my life. Some of the best things in life, I feel like we take for granted, but they're, some of the best things in life. Um, hmm, what some of the best things in life aren't always apparent to you, but once you experience those things, you realize how good they are. Yet again, that's not really, I guess, quote unquote, like a quote, for instance. It's more like a explanation. But I'll say that, yeah, some of the greatest things in life, I feel like we yet again take for granted. We don't really, I guess, properly understand it. But once we experience those things, we realize, oh yeah, this is a very good thing. Like, you might say, well, what's the joy in going to like a museum? But then you go to that museum and you you know you see all the artifacts, you see all the displays, and you get to like immerse yourself in that experience, and you never take museums for granted ever again, because they're an important, you know, aspect of our society, and many cities, to exhibit their culture, lineage, and history. So yeah, some of the best things in life um, are right in front of you. you know and I feel like, like I said, use those to your advantage. Use your local library as much as you can. Use your whatever free community programs there are, use it to your advantage. um, why, I guess, pay for like a specific service if it's being offered to you for free? Maybe the quality, but just attend those sort of things. And definitely I urge, I guess, city councils to offer more free programs, especially towards children and families. Um, those who may not have access to a whole lot of money, even if it's just like low cost activities or just very simplistic ones, it still gets children and families out, and it strengthens the health of the community. Um, you know, and yeah, that's all I really have to say. Yet again, no, it is quite late out. Vivid's most probably still happening. If you've been to Vivid, I'd like to know what the experience is. And yeah, I guess this has been it. I've been blabbing on for too long. And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to make, I guess, more longer form videos, at least for the next couple or so weeks, because I got a lot more free time on my hands. Um, but yeah, so, oh man, 105. Wow, can't believe it. Like every video after 100 just seems really surreal to me because I never thought we'll really make it this far. But anyway, I guess I'll catch you all later, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye. See you. Take care.